I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and my parents are both doctors. Whole family is doctors. Actually, I was born in India, Pondicherry, India. We already lived here, but my parents went back to India to have me, so I'd be Indian citizenship. And they're all doctors. My uncles and aunts are all doctors, and we have everything from obstetrician, who's my mom, to a coroner, who's my aunt. So birth to death, everything in between. And I guess it was kind of assumed that I was going to be a doctor. I kind of assumed that too. And slowly, in my teenage years, from like 11 to 16, kind of realized that I had this other thing that I was really, really interested in, and it was making films. And so slowly decided to become a filmmaker. I get asked the question a lot about whether the Indian culture influenced, the Indian American mix influenced the filmmaking, and it never occurred to me, because it's not like you sit outside yourself and say, this is really unusual, but perhaps the acceptance that the body is not the end of your life, that the spirit continues, is something that I just accept, because all these Indian ceremonies about ghosts or spirits in the house and protecting the house from spirits, and it's just an accepted thing over there, and so it was something that I just assumed was common, but I guess it's not. And so in that respect, all my scripts, I think, have a certain spirituality that is fairly unusual for a young guy in Philly playing ball, eating Big Macs to have. Each movie I tell is, you want to tell a little bit about who you are, or a part of your life, and my first film was kind of going to India and learning about my heritage, and the second movie was about my Catholic school experience, 10 years of that, and this one was kind of about my childhood, being scared all the time. Don't go outside, it's too dark, don't go in that room, don't go downstairs, it's scary. Everything really did scare me. I was a very timid kid, and the fear of what is in the other room, what is down the hall, is so scary, This is kind of an example of what I consider fear is. When I got home, one day, went with my family to the mall. We came home, pulled into the driveway, and the front door was open. It was nighttime, and the car stops, and everybody's quiet, and I'm like, what? And I look, and I was probably like 12, 13. I look, and the front door's wide open. My dad's like, somebody's in the house, and everybody's silent. And my dad, for some reason, takes the dog and goes in the house to check it out, like he's Rambo or something. But he goes in, and I was scared to death. And that was one level of fear. But then he comes out and he goes, nobody was in there. It was just the mat got stuck in the door, and the door swung open with the wind. And he's like, wow, you know what was really scary? And I said, what, Dad? And he goes, I just got this picture of some crazy person sitting on the edge of the bed waiting for me. And that image was like, I had nightmares forever, and that is kind of the Vincent scene in the movie, was come home and there's someone waiting for you in your house. And those kind of images tortured me for a while. Those kind of very horrific images. Acting is something that I want to do, I want to practice, but obviously a 20-something Indian guy, it's a tough gig to find. Even if you write them and direct them, it's a tough gig to find. And I wrote this little part for me to be the doctor, and my parents were all doctors, so I thought it would be a nice little thing to put on the white coat and be a doctor for a day. And it was a nerve-wracking thing, because it's not, obviously my energy wasn't involved in what's my character thinking and all that. I was directing the movie, and the day came on the schedule when I didn't go to the set straight. I had to go to makeup, and I was like, oh man. Actually, it was a longer scene, and I was so bad I just cut most of it out. So it was a scene, actually, Toni Collette playing Lynn, she gets really mad at me in that scene, and she calls me all these bad things, and I just couldn't pull it off. So I just trimmed it all down into a nice, neat, me staring at her scene. My goal as a filmmaker is to try to make cultural phenomenons. How do you make that happen? And how do you get under the skin and define a time and a place, and really take your place in society that affected you. People are still affected by the original Exorcist when they think about it, that time period and all. My mom and dad were in India, and they talk about how it affected them. It affected The World and The Godfather and all these movies. Now these are movies that obviously became huge, gigantic box office hits, but I'm talking about how it affected the culture. You know, and obviously Titanic and all those movies. And how can you make these movies where it gets under everybody's skin, and that's the original goal, and you kind of forget about it and you go make your movie after a while. But the Sixth Sense opened on my birthday, August 6th, which was another sign that the movie was just in a weird place and being guided. It opened on my birthday, and my first two movies grossed $350,000 combined, and The Sixth Sense on its opening day on Friday night grossed $8 million, and that's like a million and a half people saw it on opening night. And I was like, my God, that's been amazing. And so that's one thing. But then it's Sunday. That Sunday did more than Friday, which is a really unusual thing. It means word of mouth is starting to go already. People are like, the Sunday was bigger than Friday. And so that weekend we grossed 27 million, which is gigantic, and was the biggest weekend in the history of August. And so that in itself is an amazing thing, but that is not truly amazing, because you can, in this day and age, you can take a mediocre film and promote it crazily and get that. I think you can. Now, the second weekend, now that is the movies weekend, the second weekend, and that decides a lot of things, and that tells you a lot. And a normal drop-off for a movie in the summer is probably 45%, you know, it drops off. And a great movie drops off like 30%. Just a smash hit drops off 25%. We almost didn't drop off. We was about 2% drop, and it was almost identical, you know, 26.8 or whatever it was. And that was the moment I got that call on Saturday morning, on the second Saturday. That's when I was like, because they were like, I'm telling you, Knight, this never ever happens. Never ever happens. And I hung up the phone and I was like, gosh, we might have our cultural phenomenon. And that I teared up in the kitchen when I was thinking that, because it wasn't just like having a big hit. That's just such a physical thing, having a big hit. But to have a movie that people are recommending and going to see over and over again, wow. And it just kept going on and on. And then our fifth weekend was Labor Day weekend. And we grossed about $30 million on that weekend. And that's just ridiculous. Only two movies have done that kind of business at the time, and it was Sixth Sense and Titanic, and I couldn't believe it. But we had a cultural phenomenon. You know, I was on it's everywhere. I've heard rabbis giving sermons about it. In colleges, they had I heard this economics class where my friend was in, and he said they were teaching it like, if Sixth Sense tickets cost $7.50, and 750 people went to get, you know, and they just doing charts that way to interest them. And you know, on Jay Leno, they did spoofs and on and on and on, and you know, sitcoms, they're referring to it. And I was playing basketball, a pickup game at the school, and one of the guys on the team threw the ball, and he threw it to nobody, and it hit the fence. And the guy's like, you know, the other guy on the team said, "What do you think? You see dead people or something?" And he didn't know that I had directed the movie, and it just had seeped into the culture. Oh, you see dead people. It's everywhere.